So we're going to be talking about all the materials that you need in order to create Waldorf inspired or natural fiber art dolls. So we'll start with the basic of the materials. So the main attraction, so to speak, is the doll skin fabric, and we have a few different manufacturers that create this skin fabric specifically for doll making. We have what we know as the Weft angle. This skin fabric is called an interlock. It comes in a tube and it's usually the same on both the inside and the outside part. And this fabric has a really nice stretch. It's a strong fabric that has very low peel action. When you wash your dolls, the fabric doesn't peel as much, and that's really important for if you are making Waldorf dolls that are meant to be played by children. If you're going to put them in the hands of children, it's important to select fabrics that have a very high quality and durability. There's another Dutch company that I think, if I'm correct, use the same kind of factory that this fabric uses. I do not know exactly the name of the company because it's a very small family business that produces the same quality of fabric. The colors might be just slightly different, but they are very similar. If you look at the warm olive brown, at the peach, at the light peach and medium peach, they don't have this exact color, but the shades are very similar and you have some variety, right? Then we have this other skin colors and this very warm brown, and we're always looking for more skin colors because we all like to make our dolls very unique and with very different skin colors. Using a different skin color achieves that much more easily for you because then you can vary, the variations are infinite, right? So the outside of the fabric, the side that you touch and whatever, is the actual inside of the doll. So the side that will be looking out once you cover the doll is going to be this side. So normally you would trace your doll, whatever, cut your pieces depending on how you make your dolls, sew it, turn it the right side out, because this, my friends, is the right side, and that's how you use the doll skin fabric. If you end up using this side as the outside, it's like not a big deal, except that this side is a little fuzzier from shipping, handling, manufacturing, etc. So I always use the inside because it looks a bit more clean. Now there's another company in Switzerland. I call the company Lela, but I don't know how you pronounce it. That's just how I've heard others say it. And so this fabric is not an interlock. This fabric is a jersey. That means that it has a right and a wrong side. This is the right side and this is the wrong side. So it looks like a t-shirt. The inside of the fabric has all these little bumps or pearls, and the outside of the fabric has the ribs. And normally we use this side as the side facing the people, and this is the inside of the doll. This is called the heavyweight, and I use the heavyweight both on the face and on the body because the lightweight has a discernible difference from the heavyweight. And in my opinion, when you use the lightweight on the head, it's thinner, so it's easier to conform to the face of the doll. And then you use this one on the body, you can see the difference in fabrics, and I personally don't like to see that. I have learned to work with this fabric for both faces and bodies. Some people, if they make very, very small dolls, they use a lightweight for both heads and bodies. I like to use this one, and I've made quite a few small dolls as well. But you can use both. It's preference. There's no right or wrong. You have to remember that. So now once we've discussed the skin fabric, normally for Waldorf dolls and for some natural fiber art dolls, you use cotton gauze or Ducky Net. Some Ducky Net comes open like this as the jersey from the skin fabric, but this Ducky Net is the same on both ends because it's just a ribbing, right? Most Ducky Net that I found comes like this, just as the cotton gauze, except it's a little bit thicker. And they both serve the same purpose. So you can use the gauze or you can use the Ducky Net to bind the ball of wool, to pre-shape the head, and or to needle felt on top of that. This just helps you if you're a beginner doll maker. It helps you a lot to start seeing the head of the doll come alive. For marking on the fabric, normally I just use the soft lead pencil. It's an HB2. This is what I normally use to mark the body pattern onto the skin fabric. Sometimes, if I need to be very clear with certain seams, I might use a fine point disappearing ink marker like this one. And when I am embroidering, I use either this one or this one when I need to mark the eye shape or placement or certain seams where I want the legs to be or knees to go or something like that. I might use this one instead. It's important that no matter what you're using to trace the fabric, that you test it first. Because I trace and then sew over the tracing lines, the pencil doesn't pose an issue for me because I'm gonna turn the piece right side out. For stuffing, I use wool, and it's called wool batting, and it comes in great big sheets. You've seen me use it before, and I cut it into the width of the strips that I need, and most usually I split it so that I'm working with thinner layers, with thinner strips. So this is wool batting, and when I need to make a head, I just roll it really tight, and then I either cover this with Ducky Net and shape the doll head, or I needle felt straight onto the wool. It just, when you're going to needle felt straight onto this without using the Ducky Net, this needs to be very firm. There are other materials that you can use. You can use pencil roving if you can get this super tight. If you can roll it super tight, you can use pencil roving to create that first inner head. Other people use wool top to felt the facial features. I don't. I do everything with this. To add weight to the dolls, I normally use glass beads. Why glass beads? Because the doll can get wet and it won't cause any issues, and there are inert material. That means that time, moisture, whatever happens to the doll, it won't affect the quality of the inside material. Normally I use this weight. This is the weight that I call for in my pattern, the baby fig, and this one I have over here is glass sand. And I've also used this one for very small dolls or when I need to weigh small body parts or something like that, but this is my preferred one. This is the one I use the most, and a lot of doll makers like this one because it's easier to contour dolls with it. And this is another side that is, if you like making really floppy dolls with weight, these larger size of doll beads will also help you out. You can find this and this from Monica. Most places like Little Oki Dolls or Cameron's Pop and Atelier will sell this one, and in some occasions you'll find the glass sand, and the glass sand is very commonly found on websites that sell materials to make reborn dolls. If you want to make armatures, this is most likely the wire that you will be using. This is aluminum wire and is gauge 12. It is soft, it is easy to bend, it's very pliable, so it's very conducive to creating doll armatures. You might want to use a higher number, means that the wire is smaller. If you're making a really large doll, you can use 16-inch wire and then use 12 to reinforce it. There are different options. You would use something like this for fingers. This is 20, I believe, or 22. And then there's another type of wire that is that comes covered in cotton. It's kind of inside of our rope. This wire is very thin, so it's pliable. A lot of doll makers use it to put it inside the neck. You wouldn't probably use this wire for legs or anything like that because it's too flimsy. Maybe for arms or something like that. Now for hair, of course, we have a lot of options because making doll hair is really fun, but I'll start with wefts because most people like to use wefts. So this is what I call a commercial mohair weft, and this is what is called a coarse weft. The coarse weft is manufactured with a glaze that makes the hair kind of soft but a little bit rough at the ends. So normally I trim the hair a little bit so that you can feel that slightly burned sensation at the end of the hair. Because the hair is permed, it won't lose its curl if you wash it. It might soften, and it's dyed, so it comes in many different colors. You can find different type of curls, a soft curl, a longer curl, a more tight curl. You can find it straight in different lengths. So normally when you buy the weft, they tell you how many grams this weighs, but that's not helpful to you because what you need to know is the length this way and how long the locks are. So these usually are 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches. I bought wefts that are 10 to 12 inches long this way, but this is the length that you most likely need to figure out how much you need, because it's what you're either going to sew or crochet into a wig for your doll. And most manufacturers will tell you it's 44 inches, 1 meter, etc. Right? Commercial weft has a right and a wrong side. So this is the side that would be seen from the top, and this is the underside, the side with the little bump. Now, if you don't want to buy your weft ready-made like this, you can buy wool locks. These are tease water locks, and so these ones, the animal grows the locks like this, so they are curly by nature. They have not been permed, and wool has memory, so they will probably retain their shape even if you wash them, but you do need to let them air dry. And what you would do with this is you would sew it into strips using tulle, using a piece of yarn, using water soluble stabilizer, whatever helps you to create this, right? Because you want all the locks going the same way, so you will align them. It's very important when you make wefts that you don't sew down the middle and then do this and then sew like this to the head. Why? Because you are going to have ends that are going to be the root of the lock, and you're going to have ends that are going to be the points of the lock. And when you have the hair on the doll, you want all the roots near the wig cap of the doll, because the wool fiber has little barbs, and you need to make sure that all the barbs are going the same way. Otherwise they lock into each other and they mat. And if you do that, this is going to become one matted piece of mess on your doll's hair. If you don't need the locks this long, if you only need them short, then sew them over here. But keep the direction of the lock going the same way with the points at the end and wherever you place the weft. I would say don't buy locks that are this long. Buy shorter locks if you need to make a doll with shorter hair, so that you don't waste the length of the lock, because the longer the lock, the more you pay for it, because that means that the animal was fed for a longer period of time in order to grow its wool so long so that the farmer could sell longer locks. If a farmer has to wait 3 years or 2 years before he can sell the fiber on the animal, obviously it's gonna require more feed, more care, so therefore very long locks are more expensive than shorter locks. And it also obviously depends on the breeds. Some breeds like Teeswater sheep can grow really long fibers, whereas other breeds grow much shorter locks. I just want to show you what natural mohair looks like. This is extremely soft versus this one that is coarse, has been colored and treated. This one has been colored as well, but this one has probably have gone under more processes because this is manufactured in a factory, whereas this one was cut by a human, dyed by a human. So this one is very, very, very soft, and these are extremely high quality long mohair logs versus this ones that are much shorter. So Suri alpaca normally can be sold raw, which is a mess, or it can be sold like this, which is cut and ready to be wefted. You're gonna see this on the doll very soon. This is Suri alpaca, and so there are two types of alpaca fiber normally used for dolls. I think it's called wakaya, which is really short, and Suri. Suri is the one that's long and that's very, very silky. So if you're trying to find alpaca to use for your doll's hair, look for Suri alpaca. And there the fiber comes in a few different colors because it depends on the animals, and some suppliers will dye it for you, or you can dye it yourself. I like to buy it in its natural color, and every now and then I dye it, but I like to use it in its natural color. Now you also need yarn. If you crochet the wigs and then sew the hair to the wig like I do, you want to buy doll making mohair yarn. This is Dolly Mo. This is Poop and Garn. There are different brands that you can use. This is mohair yarn that's specifically made for doll making. Abstain from using mohair yarn that is meant for knitting because it's not spun the same way and it doesn't have the same loft of the fiber. So as you're pulling those fibers, it's gonna make a wig that is too bare, and you want a full wig, either to use as is in the case of making a baby or a really young looking doll, or in the case of using the fiber from the mohair cap to cover the roots of the wefts that you've sewn or the weft that you purchased. So if you're gonna use a mohair cap, it's important that you use doll making mohair yarn. And this is where the fun starts because you have to match this color to this.